All right, so in part one, we looked at the insane top-line numbers for this Plazm portfolio. We saw how it turned a little over $1,000 into more than $20,000 on paper. Incredible, right? But how? How did that actually happen? Let's dig in.
Yeah, this is the big one. 1,600% ROI. It's the kind of number that makes you do a double take. But here's the thing about these big, flashy numbers. They never, ever tell the full story.
So let's really get into it. Where did this massive gain actually come from? Because it's one thing to see a big number on a screen, but it's a whole other thing to understand the engine behind it. And that's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
Okay, so if you scroll down this dashboard, you hit the strategy breakdown. This is the good stuff. This is where we see the two core engines that are making all this happen. You can almost think of it like a company with two completely different departments, each doing its own thing.
First up, we've got Creates. The easiest way to wrap your head around this is to picture a bunch of factories. Seriously, these things are just cranking out brand new Plazm tokens 24/7. This is the production line, the manufacturing arm of the whole operation.
And then engine number 2 is stakes. So if Creates are the factories, stakes are the company vaults. This is where you take the Plazm you already have, lock it up, and let it earn interest. It's not about making new stuff, it's about making what you have grow.
All right, so let's pop the hood on that first engine. Let's really put these Plazm factories under the microscope and see what they're made of.
So, get this. There are 35 of these create positions. That's like having 35 little machines all whirring away on the factory floor, all minting new tokens at the same time.
So, what have all these factories actually produced? Well, across all 35 of them, they've turned out a total yield of about 6,500 Plazm. That is a huge harvest from our little manufacturing department. Now let's talk money. To get all 35 of those factories up and running, the total cost was just under $880. But today, the on-paper value of what they've produced is over $20,000. Yeah, you heard that right. And that brings us to the absolutely mind-blowing ROI for just the factories, over 2,200%. That's a 22x return, just from this one part of the strategy. Wild. So, the takeaway here is pretty brutal and simple. The Create engine, the factories, is doing pretty much all of the heavy lifting. This is where the lion's share of the profit is coming from.
Okay, so now let's shift gears and look at engine number 2, the Plazm vaults, our stakes column. Time to check in on the Treasury Department and see how they're doing.
All right, so we can see we've got 9 of these staking positions or vaults. You can imagine these are all different lockup times, different amounts of Plazm stashed inside.
And the yield from these vaults? Well, so far they've kicked out just under 295 Plazm in rewards. Now that's not nothing, it's helpful, but you can already see we're playing in a completely different ballpark compared to the factories.
And financially, about $373 went into these vaults. Today, that investment has grown to just over $1,200. So that gives us an ROI for the staking side of things of around 227%. Look, a 3.2x return is fantastic. You take that any day of the week, but it just gets dwarfed by the 22x we saw from the factories.
And this really spells out the role of the vaults perfectly. They're the slow and steady part of the portfolio. They've done great, more than tripled the initial cash, but they are absolutely not the main growth driver here. Not even close.
Okay, time for the showdown. Let's put these two engines right next to each other. This is going to make it crystal clear where all the action is.
Yeah, you look at this table and the story just tells itself, doesn't it? The Creates engine, the factories, took less than $900 and turned it into over 20 grand with that insane 2,200% ROI. The stakes engine did fine. It was profitable, but it's a totally different league. The factories are the undeniable star of this show.
But this is where we have to slam on the brakes. We need a serious, brutal reality check. It is so easy to get hypnotized by big green numbers on a screen. But you got to remember, they don't exist in a bubble.
These numbers look incredible right now, but the whole thing is fragile. The whole system can break. What happens if the real yield, the actual revenue coming into the protocol, dries up? Well, the factories shut down and the vaults stop paying interest. And what if the token price just completely dumps? All these dollar values, they just evaporate, even if your token count is the same.
So when you see a dashboard like this, you have to force yourself to look past that shiny ROI and start asking the really hard questions. First one, and it's the most important. Where's the real external money coming from to pay for all this?
Second, you've got to dig deep into the tokenomics. You have to ask, are the burns and buybacks, the things that are supposed to reduce the supply, are they actually strong enough to fight back against all the new tokens being printed by the factories? Or are you just getting inflated away?
And finally, this is the most ruthless question you have to ask yourself. Is there real demand for this thing? Or are you just the exit liquidity for somebody else who got in way earlier than you? Because until you have solid answers to these questions, a 16x screenshot is just that, a screenshot.